we all have natural intuitive ability. Whether or not we ever want to do anything with it, most people aren't going to use it in the kind of wacky out there way that I use mine, which is by speaking and teaching and working with so many people. And to do it for a living, right? Most people don't use your intuition like that. Most people don't. But for all of us, that reconnection with intuition is coming home. It's through that intuitive ability that we're connecting with God or source or light or spirit, or make up your own name. We're connecting with that divine in us. And then to live intuitively is to live in response to that divine love working through us.
Welcome to the Go Go Bistro podcast, where we dish up inspiration for women who are hungry for change and ready to make it happen. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. This is a space to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing is off the table. I'll be serving up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and share my interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they've learned along the way. So join me at my favorite little two-top, pull up a chair, and let's get started. Now, how many of you have had a skill or special ability you can say goes back to your childhood? Something you were always aware of that you knew was unique and different, but may not have been fully expressed until later in life. Or for some, has been forgotten or never really brought out into the light. On today's episode, Karen Hager shares with us how she moved from her involvement in organized religion to seminary preparing for ordination to the priesthood to following a calling to an unknown destination. Karen is known for her compassionate, no-nonsense approach to the spiritual journey. She conducts more than 1,200 private intuitive sessions each year with people from around the world looking for spirit-led guidance. Karen is a passionate advocate for intuitive development, and her classes and events focus on empowering students to connect with their own natural intuitive awareness, deepen their spiritual practice, and open themselves to abundance. She is the creator and host of the long-running podcast, Out of the Fog with Karen Hager. Karen, welcome to Go Go Bistro.
Hi, thank you, Noelle.
So, Karen, we have so much to dive into. And just to kind of talk a little bit about how we know each other, we have known each other for several years. You have not only been a guide to me, but you have really helped me in understanding the spiritual world a lot better. And I thank you for that. I just wanted to put that out there because I think that you are amazing at what you do. So I am more than giddy to be able to talk to you today. So just to get us started, maybe can you provide us with a little bit of background just about your early years and kind of what got you to the point of going into the church?
I was a wacky intuitive child from as early as I can remember. When I was about 4.5, I told my guides to shut up and go away. They made too much noise. They made me weird. I was already weird. I didn't want to be weird. About that time, when I was about 4.5, my mom had had a new baby, my little sister, and she still is, darn it. But my little sister was perfect in every way. I didn't want to be weird, and I wanted to be the best kid. So I told my guides to shut up and go away. Didn't work. I was still me, and my little sister's still amazing. But told my guides to be quiet and go away. I thought at that time that I was turning off my intuitive ability, not really what was happening. Over the years, I worked as an actor. So I worked as an actor as a child and then again as an adult, but did a lot of theater. Oh man, I love it. So much fun. And although I didn't know it, I was using my intuition in creating characters and feeling into possibilities for where stories could go. I went to college and majored in theater, was privileged to live and study in London with some wonderful actors and a beautiful acting community there. I learned a tremendous amount. And college is where I met my wife. We just had our 37th anniversary, so it was probably about 40 years ago that we met each other in college. I'm still 20, by the way. I just want to make it clear. Chronological time, when you're spiritual like I am, chronological time has no effect on you at all. met my wife, and we set off for California together. We got jobs, as you do when you're in your 20s and you have no money and you haven't planned anything out. We got jobs, both of us, in the publishing industry and started to work. During that time, as we were exploring our love for each other and what it meant to be in a relationship, got to remember this is the end of the 80s in San Francisco, so AIDS crisis there, new ideas about how gay and lesbian people could form families. As we worked through all of that, I felt a very strong calling. And I felt that strong calling that led me to organized religion. I am not a good organized religion person because I am too independent. I say whatever comes into my mind. And I didn't think organized religion was going to work for me. We had been Presbyterian when I was a kid, but we were what I call being Presbyterian for the donuts. If we went to church and we were good, my parents would take us out for donuts. So I was fully Presbyterian for the donuts and left the church in my early teens and just never thought another thing about it. That strong call that I had when I was in my 30s, early 30s, led me to the Episcopal Church, and I found Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And I began to be involved in the life and rhythm of that community. That led me deeper into understanding the Episcopal Church as a whole, studying things like theology and liturgy and church history, pastoral counseling, all that kind of stuff. Pretty soon I was in that congregation serving as a volunteer and helping lead groups for adults who were in spiritual transition, people who'd gotten to a place in their lives when something was changing, but they didn't know what to do about it, which was, of course, what had happened to me. And that led eventually to me being called to come forward to go to seminary to prepare for ordination to the priesthood in that denomination. The Episcopal Church has a very long process for ordination. So it's not like you fill out a form online and then you're an Episcopal priest. It is many years of self-assessment and prayer and community work and service in the community. So you preach and you teach and you serve and you go to school. While I was in seminary and just before I got to the end, that little plastic collar you get when you're an ordained ministry, that was just about in my grasp. I almost had that thing. I had the same kind of strong calling to step away from the program. And I had worked so hard to get there, Noelle. It had been years of my life. There were people counting on me. There were congregations where I was in service. And that strong calling said, this is what you were supposed to get out of this. There's something more. Follow me out of this. So I did what I always do, the girl who told her guides to shut up and go away. I ignored that, pretended nothing was happening. And eventually that call got louder and louder and louder until I finally had to step back. It meant disappointing people. It meant telling the truth even when it would have been much more comfortable to pretend that everything was okay.
Yeah.
It meant that I couldn't answer the question, what are you going to do next? Because I didn't know. And that's kind of what led me to the place I think we're talking about today.
Yes. Because I think that the one thing that comes to mind when you say that you had a calling to go into the church, and then it sounds like you have this second calling. Can you describe to me what that felt like? Or was it just some of us get a voice, some of us have a little whisper, what was that for you?
The call to explore organized religion came because, and I think it was a college friend of mine actually who had suggested this to me. It came because I started to read the works of Thomas Merton. So he is a mid-20th century teacher, and he was a monk, kind of famously associated with Gethsemane Abbey down in Kentucky. And I started reading his works, and one of his kind of seminal works is The Seven-Story Mountain, which is his spiritual autobiography. It talks about his conversion to Roman Catholicism in his case. And I read that book, I think it's because my friend recommended it, and something opened in me. The language in that book is dated. He has a very specific way of speaking that's not to everyone's taste, wasn't to my taste, but something opened in me when I read that book, and it made me hungry. It made me curious. It made me want to explore more. And it had been a long time since I felt hungry in that way, curious in that way. So it's not like the Archangel Michael came and stood at the foot of my bed and said, go to seminary. It wasn't like that. It was a feeling of opening, of rightness, of curiosity. I wonder what's next with this. I wonder what happens if I follow this. This doesn't make any darn sense based on my life before this. But what if I just went a little further? What if I just explored it a little bit more? And that's what that call felt like. My wife had been brought up Roman Catholic, and we went to several Roman Catholic congregations until before we found the Episcopal Church. When we would be in different congregations, it was pretty easy to tell where we were welcome and where we weren't. Again, late 80s in San Francisco. And when I walked into Grace Cathedral, I just knew that that was the place I was supposed to keep learning more. And that's what that felt like.
Gorgeous. I mean, that was my favorite cathedral in San Francisco when I lived there.
Oh, you know it.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. So this second calling, right, to kind of move out into the unknown, was that a similar feeling of curiosity?
Yes and no. Because of the work that I was doing, I think I always have, even though I wouldn't have called it this. I had a special interest, especially in seminary and in my teaching and work with daily spiritual practice, what that meant and how important that was, especially for people who were serving, whether you were serving as a priest or you were serving as a layperson or you were serving as just a regular human person out in the world with no reference to church or anything at all. And one of the things that I saw as I went more towards seminary, I went part-time, so I worked full-time, went to seminary part-time. So the people who went to seminary full-time graduated ahead of me. And I got to see what happened to my friends and colleagues as they left seminary and went into parish work. There was no time for daily spiritual practice. All the things that were the structure and the foundation of their spiritual lives, you have to work really, really hard to maintain those when you shift gears like that. And what I saw from my standpoint was how that broke people. And it wrecked their vocations. It led sometimes to choices that weren't wise, either for the pastor or for the congregation. I could see how that scaffolding, that focus on spiritual practice, when that gets lost, everything falls apart. And so as I was doing that work, a little voice kind of started up inside of me that said, this is probably what's going to happen to you. If you go down this path, how are you going to keep your spiritual practice? And I'll try harder. I'll really, really try hard. And then as I worked and served in more congregations, I was like, wow, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I can see how if I go down this path, I could be destroyed. And I think what scared me more than that, what if I hurt somebody else? What if my lack of integrity in what I was doing or saying or teaching or preaching or living, what if that lack of integrity hurt somebody else? Bad enough it would hurt me. And that got me thinking. And when I started thinking, that kind of what feels like a big, warm, open curiosity feeling came back. What if this wasn't the whole path? What if there was something more for me than this? I wouldn't take back a single second that I spent working and teaching and serving in the Episcopal Church. I wouldn't take back a moment of seminary. All of that, I feel, was for a reason. It just wasn't for the reason I thought it was. All of that got me to that moment where I said, wait a minute, what if I was able to, and I had no idea how I was going to do this, but what if I was able to help people tap into their own daily spiritual practice? What if I was able to help people have a deeper connection to divine love in all that they do? What if I was able to help people shine a light on their own paths in a different way than I could do as a pastoral counselor? What if I was able to help like that? And after a while, the call to leave seminary became so strong that even me, the I can't hear you person, even I had to acknowledge it. And I stepped out.
So you stepped out not knowing what was next.
Completely not knowing. And with people around me going, what are you doing?
Right. So what next? What happened?
The first thing that happened was I got very, 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 very physically sick. It was like all the stress and everything kind of came home to roost. And I spent about 3 weeks on the sofa in our living room in San Francisco, just completely wiped out. And as I came to the end of that time, my partner and I had been talking about adopting children. And as we came to the end of that time, the adoption process for my older son, who's now 23, that adoption process started. Isn't it amazing that I, as a 20-year-old woman, could have a 23-year-old son?
How do you do that, Karen?
It's a miracle.
I don't understand.
I'm very spiritual. It's a miracle. It's just, when you're enlightened like I am, you can transcend chronological time.
I believe it. I believe it.
So in the period where I didn't really know what the heck I was doing, our first son came to us. And then 3 years later, our second son came to us. I began my own business doing consulting in the publishing world. And so I was working in publishing. My wife was also working in publishing. We'd switched companies and affiliations by then, but she was still working. And we were raising our beautiful boys. And I was thinking about and praying and meditating and learning every single day, all these new things that were coming my way. But it wasn't until my youngest son, who's now 20, it wasn't until he was about 4 years old, I think, that I got really sick again. That happens to me a lot. I have a very unusual physical body, and things are always growing where they shouldn't go, or dropping off and needing to be reattached, or just suddenly, so I have a body made for comedy. I came to a place when my kids were little where I had to have 3 surgeries right in a row. So I had 3 surgeries in 13 months. I had a little one and a medium one and a big one. The big one was a super ginormous, life-changing one. As I went through the recovery for those surgeries, I found that my intuitive ability, my psychic knowing, which I was still trying to pretend I didn't have, was coming back stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And after that 3rd surgery, I got to a place where I realized I'm going to have to do something about this, because I'm going to go nuts. I found an intuitive development teacher and started to take class. And that was probably 5 or 6 years after I left seminary.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you feel as though, I know that you had mentioned in your childhood, you had felt these gifts was part of your daily life, right? That you tried to sort of damper down. And after the accident, did those become more heightened, which made you kind of unable to ignore them further? Like, how did that come into your consciousness again?
They'd always popped up. So they would pop up and I'd smack them down, right?
Yeah.
And part of what happened after I had those surgeries, and it wasn't even through an accident, it was just through having a comic body where things just went wrong one after another after another. During the time that I had those 3 big surgeries, when those intuitive knowings would come up, it was almost like I was too tired or too raw or too something to be able to beat them back down the way that I thought I used to be able to do it. And after that 3rd surgery, that really big one, they just came roaring back in, which was unpleasant.
Yeah.
So what it felt like was a very heightened intuitive knowing. So I teach intuitive development, and what I tell students is that the things that we try to suppress, the more you try to suppress your psychic knowing, the more likely it is for your psychic experiences to be negative ones. Because all your energy is going to hold it down, right?
Yes.
So yes. I had the scary kind of psychic experiences. I've always been really attuned to haunted places. I can see dead people. I got that whole thing going on. So when I was in that, I don't want to call it a weakened state because I was stronger than I had been. I just didn't know it. But when I was in that in-between state, recovering from those surgeries, all that psychic stuff just came flooding back in, including the scary stuff, which is part of why I realized I've got to get a handle on this. I have to do something with it. I can't go on like this. This is ridiculous. I've got kids. I need to work, right? I can't be this wacky psychic lady. So I found an intuitive development teacher, took classes. It turns out I am that wacky psychic lady.
But that's the good news, right? That's the good news.
It turned out to be good news. At least I hope so, yes.
Okay, so what fascinates me about this, too, is when you say that trying to damper it down, because I think that's true in any, whether it's spiritual knowingness, whatever you would call that, having that spiritual capability or anything else. Oftentimes when we try to kind of diffuse it or push it away, it just comes back. It's kind of like the more that you resist, and it almost feels like you were surrendering without even realizing it.
There are so many places in my life. I always tell the story about the big one when I said no to my guides, right? There were so many places in my life where I said yes. And it takes a lot of courage to say yes in those moments. I wasn't always aware. I didn't think, oh, what a brave little girl I am. But I don't know if I was always aware of how courageous that was. Leaving seminary was a big one. That took some
That's
guts
huge.
to do that. I'm a good Midwestern girl. I don't want to disappoint anybody. That took some guts. Saying yes to my intuitive abilities was also really courageous because I was afraid that it might all be about the scary stuff. It turns out that when you know how to use your abilities and you put up good energetic boundaries and you practice what I call good psychic hygiene, which is kind of like daily spiritual practice, you keep it clean. There's a structure for what you do. You're disciplined and you make it clear. You're intentional about using your abilities. There isn't a lot of that scary stuff.
But did you have to kind of grow into that? Like, so you came to the realization, you sought guidance, mentorship. Did that then take you on that path to kind of becoming more, leaning into it and more kind of being a part of it and dropping into that place that you knew felt better? Like, how did that process happen?
I think two things were happening in that moment. One was that I was working with a good teacher. So Matthew Engel, who is still teaching in San Francisco, I was working with a good teacher who almost immediately assessed where I was and gave me tools to deal with my intuitive abilities, like practical tools. That helped a ton and gave me validation that I wasn't an absolute and total nutcase. The second thing that was going on during that time, Noelle, I think, is that I was realizing as I started reading for other people that my intuition had been with me in every pastoral counseling session I'd ever done, every liturgy I'd ever taken part of, every moment of prayer I'd ever been engaged in, everything I had ever taught, no matter what it was I was teaching. So it kind of brought me back to that context.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, this is that thing. I thought I was outrunning it. I thought I was calling it something else. It's this response to spirit moving through me, this way of listening, this way of speaking with insight. Oh, it's this. This is one of the forms that my intuitive ability takes. So those were the two things that were really good for me about finding a mentor.
Right. And being able to kind of recognize something as almost being in communion with yourself because you're starting to recognize like your home. It's like, this is really easy.
We all have natural intuitive ability. Whether or not we ever want to do anything with it, most people aren't going to use it in the kind of wacky out there way that I use mine, which is by speaking and teaching and working with so many people. And to do it for a living, right? Most people don't use your intuition like that. Most people don't. But for all of us, that reconnection with intuition is coming home. It's through that intuitive ability that we're connecting with God or source or light or spirit or make up your own name. We're connecting with that divine in us. And then to live intuitively is to live in response to that divine love working through us. So yes, it is coming home.
That's amazing. And you have been doing this work for how many years?
Well, let's see, I'm 20. I got to be careful what I tell you here so I don't mess up the age thing. I have been working professionally as an intuitive. This is my 15th year in practice.
So did you have any kind of pivotal moment where you realized that when you said you started to feel like this is it? Like this is okay, this is now making sense. Did you have any moment that you can recall when that hit you?
I had moments when I thought, this is not it. I'm not doing this anymore. What was I thinking? I am a wacky, wacky nutso lady. I'm not doing this anymore. Did I have pivotal moments when I realized this was it? I think I've probably had a few. One of the ways that I went about this all very experimentally. So when I thought I might like to try reading other people and see how it goes, I put up an ad on Craigslist as a psychic. So
Yeah.
Kids don't do this at home. And just started taking calls from random people. And I also started a podcast. That's how Out of the Fog got started, was way back in like 2008, maybe 2009, got started where I just threw open the microphones once a week and let people call in and I just did readings. I was practicing. I wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to see what would happen in that background that I had in theater. I had a lot of training in improv. And so I just wanted to see if improv and intuitive ability worked together. Spoiler alert, yes. Intuitive ability has a lot of improv in it because it's the ability to get out of the way and let whatever it is come through you. Let the story come through, the insight come through, get out of the way and let spirit speak through you. So in those moments, I had some moments as I was doing that where I thought, wow, I can really do this. I just said something to a complete stranger. I don't even know their name. I just said something that meant something to them. Wow, I can really do this. And I had other times doing that where I was like, oh man, I'm a hack and a fake and a fraud and a phony. I can't do this. What am I pretending? As I started to build a practice of people who I worked with privately, intuitively, that's where the real aha moments came. I can't believe how lucky I got, Noelle. The chance to walk with people on their journeys, the chance to hold space with them, the chance to kind of give some additional light so that they can see their paths, their gifts, their strengths more clearly. Those moments and the moments when I really hear from somebody that I helped them, that something I said made them change their mind or think about it a different way. Those are the moments when I think, yes, okay, I'll keep doing this.
Right. Oh my gosh. The thing that's so powerful to me about this too is that it's almost like you have that seed. The seed was planted way back when, but you had no, I mean, and the fact that you've been able to not only have I'm going to call it parish of people, right? You talk about working in a parish and what that would feel like and be like, and that didn't feel right. But you've built your own community. You've built your own parish of people that you help and work with and change their lives. Because I mean, I'm one of them. I'm somebody that seriously, I mean, I really am. I feel like you have had such a profound effect on me and my spirituality, just in how accessible you make it. You make it very accessible. So anyways,
Thank you.
I love this. But here's my question. So out of the fog, this started, you literally just said, okay, I'm going to start talking into the mic. How did that manifest? Like, how did that, in terms of like anybody that's looking to make a change and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? So how did you build from that? How did you take what you knew was going to be this gift you were giving people, but then kind of create your own thing?
And I didn't know it would be a gift that I would get. I was experimenting. I have a quote taped up over my desk, and I'm not sure who said it, so I apologize. I disrupt my self-doubt with experimentation. I eradicate my self-doubt, because that would be nuts,
Right.
Or I have no fear, but I disrupt my self-doubt with experimentation. I was experimenting. I thought, okay, Hager, here you think that you want to do this, try it. Put yourself out there and really try it. I gave myself permission to try it. If this hadn't been it, I would have gone around and done something else. Who knows where I'd be today, right? But I disrupted that self-doubt with experimentation. For people who are feeling a call to try something new, I think that would be my first advice. Try it. Take a little step and keep feeling for that hunger, that opening, that curiosity, that rightness. Allow yourself the experience of trying something before you shut it down. Mm-hmm. There's no requirement that you not be scared. There's no requirement that you lose all self-doubt. No, keep all of that and bring it into the new circumstance from that place of experimentation. What I found was that sometimes people who talked to me wanted to talk to me again. And so I set up a framework where I could work with people intuitively doing private sessions. And from that place, I love to teach. And from that place, I started to develop the classes that I offer. For the core of what I teach is intuitive development, but I teach classes about connecting with your guides and abundance and protection for empaths, like energetic protection for empaths and all kinds of other stuff. And those classes kind of sprung out of that. I'd love to help as many people as I possibly can understand that they are beautiful, much loved children of the divine, that their intuitive and spiritual abilities are a reflection of that love that Spirit has for us, and that we can use those abilities to live a life that is empowered. I don't mean use those abilities to know your future. I mean, use those abilities to live your life in a way that's empowered, more confidence, more clarity, more structure for your day-to-day life, more daily spiritual practice. You can use these gifts that you already have, that don't come from outside of you, they're inside you. I'd want to help as many people as possible know that you can be empowered to make decisions using this extra aspect of your personality.
Okay, so with that said, and I've been to one of the classes, I've done one-on-one with you, but I've been to one of your intuitive sessions. If I were to say to you, how do I access that part of myself? So for those who don't feel that they're as in touch with that as they could be? Or like, are there a couple of things to impart to someone about that would be helpful for them to be able to try to start accessing that a little bit more, just in terms of getting quiet with yourself?
If you have baggage around meditation, and most of us do, try not meditating. That's maybe number one.
Okay.
I ask students who start with me to commit to sitting for a moment, quarter of a second, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, with their eyes open, their hands open, and their heart open to what they might receive, fully in the present moment. Get quiet, keep your eyes open, and just listen. Just look at what's around you, feel what's around you. Don't meditate, don't talk to unicorns, there's no mantra, there's no affirmation. We flee the present moment. We run away from it, we scramble away from it. And in that present moment, that's where spirit is. That's where intuition begins. That's where healing starts. That's where change starts. So intuitive connection starts with allowing yourself the experience of catching yourself in the present moment. That's easy to say. It is super hard to do. Mm-hmm. So someone who wants to be more connected intuitively, I'd start by saying that. And angels aren't going to come talk to you while you do that. You're not going to see dead people. It really is you saying, here I am. I feel myself. I'm here in my office. The sun is coming through the window behind me. I'm talking to Noelle. I'm fully present in this moment. That's part one. That's a gateway drug because you'll want more of that once you have it. Because we're hungry for it. We just don't know because we're scrambling away from it so much. The second thing is to start to feel into the ways that you might know things before you could logically know them. For example, you go to the supermarket and you're looking for a parking place. How do you know whether to turn left or right down the next aisle, right? How do you know which way, where the parking place is going to be? That's your intuition, right? So start to be aware of all the little ways in which your intuition is playing into your everyday life. And then I think number 3 is let's start to do some experiments. Ask a question, and you don't have to have guides or know your guides' names or there's no right way to do this. Ask a question, a simple question, something that you don't care about the outcome, is a yes or no question, and something you can easily verify. So something I like to do in my own life is, do I need to bring more paper towel up from the basement? Right? We have paper towel under our kitchen sink. When we need more, we have to go down to the basement. Do I have to bring up more paper towel from the basement? I feel into that. Do I get a yes or do I get a no? What does that yes or no feel like? Does it feel like a little tingle? Is it a tightening around my third eye? Do I just hear the word yes or no? Do I feel a yes or no? And when I think I've got that yes or no, I go, okay, thanks. Then I get up and look in the cupboard under the sink and see, do I need to bring in more paper towel? Starting those little tiny experiments like that. Sometimes students think that the way you connect with your intuition is that you start shouting at your guides. Oh, guides, what is my life purpose? Oh, guides, what do I need to know today? Oh, guides, what is my soul path? But you're just going to confuse yourself and give yourself a stomach ache, and it just, Start by feeling into what is a yes, what is a no, how does that come through for me? Whatever you receive, if you try the paper towel experiment, whatever you receive, acknowledge it, say thank you, and then discern, check it out. See if there's paper towel.
It's just paper towel.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter. It's not your soul path. It's not the future of the Western world. Is there a role under there or not? That's all it is.
But you're also testing something. It's a challenge to sort of trust that, right? It's like, I think there's something about hearing that, listening to it, and letting that guide you, but also trusting it more and more and more. Because I think the more you know you can trust it and you test it and it works, then you'll be more apt to doing that again and again and again, which I think it is a lot of its practice too, right?
And you start to see that it's not scary.
Right.
When you come at it gradually like this, it lessens the chances. And students are scared of this. And I understand this happened to me. It lessens the chances that there'll be a big, abrupt, rip the intuitive Band-Aid off, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by dead people and archangels, and you know the time the train will come in India or whatever it is. When you start it this way, you're remembering your own sovereignty over your intuitive abilities, and that's really important. you are always in charge of the choices you make and the actions that you take.
Yes.
And so none of this exploration we're talking about is scary because you're in charge of it the whole time.
Right. Karen, your entire story, I could sit here with you for hours. You know that.
Okay, let's.
You know that. We have tested that before. But I know that I want to be conscientious of your time as well. But let me ask you this. Here we are. You've been doing what you've been doing for the past, how many years? 15 years now?
About 15.
You said
yeah.
15. So what's next? What's coming up?
Oh gosh, what's coming up? I'm always coming up with new class ideas. I love doing private sessions with people. Every session I do is different.
Yeah.
Even if it's someone I've talked to before, it is never, ever the same thing twice. So that's what's next. More private sessions, more classes. I know that I'm supposed to, in quotes, be writing a book. There's writing happening.
Nice.
How long have I known I was supposed to write the book? I don't know, about 15 years. So it's, coming along slowly. But there's writing happening, creation of new fun things. If you head over to KarenHager.com, you can always see the classes and things that are offered. I love adding new things there all the time. So I think that's what's next.
And your new puppy, right? You have a new puppy.
Maisie, the dog.
So
Actually,
sweet.
what's next is walking Maisie, and then walking Maisie again, and then feeding Maisie, and then walking Maisie again, and then walking Maisie. You're right. I'm just shutting down my business because all I do is walk the dog. So never mind.
Hey, it can happen. That can happen.
She's about 1.5 years now, Noelle, and she is
I love it.
the sweetest, oddest, best dog. Yeah.
You know what? They are such gifts, right?
Yeah.
Such a gift.
I feel like a dog is one of the most present ways of having a reflection of the unconditional love of spirit with us.
Oh.
Because a dog is always in the present moment and is always present with you. When you engage with the dog is right there with you. Cats are a different story. Also lovely.
Right.
But a dog, I feel like, is a wonderful companion and reminder for the presence of unconditional divine love in our lives. And so to me, always, I love animal companions of all kinds. I've lived with dogs and cats my whole life. There's something really special about a dog as a companion.
Oh, and sweet Maisie. I love the name. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like your life is such a tapestry, and it's so interesting to talk to you. Every time I talk to you, I learn something different and new. And I just hope that this can kind of send the message of jumping out there, taking that leap when you feel something needs to happen, even if you don't know what it's going to be.
Don't be scared. You don't have to get rid of your fear. Don't be scared. Take the next little step. Experiment. Be gentle with yourself. Yes. Ask questions and just move forward just a little bit.
I love it. Thank you again, Karen. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.